Welcome to Being a Successful Leader with Carl Welty. Carl is a leadership pioneer with years of challenging leadership and consulting experience. Here's Carl with some valuable insights, practical and proven methods for being a successful leader.
Welcome to the series, Being a Successful Leader. Carl Welty here, your host. The intent of the series is to provide a valuable insights and practical and proven know-how to be a successful leader. It's divided into three sections, or what I call imperatives for successful leadership. The first is being a skilled, self-aware leader. The second is formulating and executing a sound strategy. And the third is building a culture of commitment. Skilled, self-aware leader, formulating, executing a sound strategy, and building a culture of commitment. 26 weekly episodes divided pretty much evenly among the three areas of focus. Each episode is about 15 to 30 minutes. Today's topic is freeing up more discretionary time. Now, to back up just a little bit, we had, as an integral part of being a skilled self-aware leader, a section about discovering, and another section or episode on capitalizing on your strengths. But your time is probably limited, especially, as a leader. Pretty well filled up. So we need to discuss ways to make room to allow you more discretionary time so you can capitalize on your strengths. Now, obviously, in the long run, knowing your strengths, you can take advantage of that and create or capture opportunities for yourself. But as we discussed in the short run, your current leadership role, we can probably discover last chapter or episode, ways to capitalize your strengths. Even if you not full up for some reason and don't need to make room, still as a leader, it's an open-ended job, leadership, and there's always room for higher level, higher value work as a leader. So always a good thing to kind of keep it free to look at more discretionary time. All right, with that as an intro, let's get going on freeing up more discretionary time. Divided into three parts this episode. Number one, we'll briefly go through some strategies for you to consider in looking for ways to free up your discretionary time. The second of the three is the art of delegation. Very, very important activity as a leader manager, and we spend a little bit of time on that. And we end up briefly with managing your weaknesses. Remember we talked about it's important to know your strengths, but also your weaknesses. Okay. Now, possible strategies regarding work you are currently performing, your responsibilities. Remember, we divided accountability and or distinguished accountability and responsibility. Accountability is your overall desired results that you're obliged to achieve. And responsibility is carrying out duties, and you have responsibilities, duties underneath your accountability. And we're looking at, should you continue to do those or streamline them or what have you. So number one of the possible strategies is discontinue. Sometimes we get started with things and it maybe had a good purpose at the beginning, but maybe has outlived its usefulness. So are there any responsibilities that you personally perform now, work you do, that you could scratch out, eliminate? The second is to re-engineer work. In other words, maybe there's a procedure you've been following and what have you, and maybe you can streamline that and clear it up a little bit. A third is organization imposed work. Well, what is that? That is work you have to perform in your leadership role that you don't really start, but the organization requires it, your organization. And sometimes, just like your own work, things get started and had a purpose, but maybe now it's outlived its purpose. So if there's any of that, maybe you're well served to talk to whomever in your organization to see if there's a way we can eliminate that or streamline that organization-imposed work. May require a little bit of leadership courage, but I mean, that's what it's all about. Courage, as we talked about, is really a very, very important part of leadership. Okay, another one is delegation possibilities. Ongoing activities or tasks that you are currently perform are segments of work. Maybe your responsibility is a certain hunk of work that's continuous. Maybe it's time to delegate that to somebody in your organization. Meetings that you attend, maybe you don't have to attend these meetings. Maybe somebody in your organization working for you can attend these meetings. So ongoing activities or tasks that you could delegate. Another delegation possibility is both routine and non-routine, what I call time limited. I divide into time limited and ongoing work. Time limited assignments or activities that come your way. A lot of them could be very routine, please do this, please do that, take care of this. But others maybe require a little bit more deliberation and talking to whomever you're going to delegate it to. And maybe there's some activities that come your way that you could delegate. Another one of delegation possibilities is letting go of your strength work. Of course, we spend time on discovering your strengths, your strength work. And maybe sometimes you hang on to these things because it's nice, warm, and fuzzy, and you feel good, and so forth and so on. We talked about the principle of technical priority, very, very important thing to understand. Principle technical priority states that there's good human nature reasons that we tend to hang on to technical things. And remember, we talked about technical work, management work, and leadership work. And sometimes technical work is more rewarding because it's faster. We have specific results. We're skilled in it. And sometimes maybe we got to our current position because of our technical prowess. But there's a time to let go of that. And sometimes there's a tendency to hold on because it feels good to keep our skills honed. And that's another reason that people tend to hold on to technical work. They don't want to become obsolete. And gee whiz, what if people below me can do it better than I am? I can't. Well, that's just a fact of life, and get used to it. You're a leader, manager now, and there's still technical work you need to perform. Remember, you're never 100% leader or manager. You have to keep up with technical work, keep your knowledge up, and sometimes your skills. But then there's times to let go of that too. Okay, hopefully I made that clear. And the last is staff development. Maybe it's time that a person or people working for you, they're ready now. They're what I call mature, maturity level. Maturity level is the task relevant or responsibility relevant maturity. Maturity being competence and motivation. In other words, they have now the necessary skill and they're motivated to take on a larger responsibility. So maybe they weren't ready up to now. Then maybe it's time that you delegate to a person or people an activity or a hunk of responsibility. Okay, those are some key pieces of possible strategies you can think about and explore in terms of freeing up some discretionary time for yourself. Let's move now to the art of delegation. Spend a few minutes on this. Very, as I said earlier, very, very important activity, a critical skill, if you will, for the leader manager. Delegation, we need to define as the act of entrusting responsibility and authority to others and create accountability for results. Entrusting responsibilities and authority to others and creating accountability for results. It involves passing on to others either ongoing or time-limited responsibilities, things that you can delegate, a piece of work you've been forming or assignment or a project, that sort of thing. But we need to look upon delegation, and this is important, as an investment. Your investment in time and effort and so forth and so on, and developing a person or people working for you, and not getting rid of work. It's an investment in a time for performance coaching, an opportunity for that. So very important. Again, we're not talking about routine things. Please do this, please do that, please call so-and-so. We're talking about things that need some conversation up front as you pass on an assignment, a project, or a hunk of work that you heretofore have been performing. So delegation is not passing the buck. It is not giving up your overall accountability. Remember, we made a distinction between accountability and responsibility. It's not refusing to make a decision by assigning it to another. I know you're not guilty of that. And another one is it's not shirking your own personal responsibility, okay? So think of it as an investment, and with that, it requires a little bit upfront time to have a quality, a handoff, if you will. So let's look at delegation considerations. Number one is the complexity of assignment. Hinted at that already. If it's a routine thing and so forth, maybe you just write a note, send an email, have a brief conversation. So if it's more than that, maybe, it's scalable. So maybe now's the time to have upfront conversation. We talked about already the other delegation consideration is the maturity level of the responsibility or the task relevant maturity level of the person you're going to give the assignment to. Are they ready for it? And if they're not, maybe you need to coach them a little bit until they're ready. And the other one of delegation consideration is opportunity for performance coaching. Excellent opportunity for performance coaching. That'll be one of our major sessions down the line, performance coaching. Let's look at the delegation components. I divided into two. The intent. What is the intent of this delegation, be it ongoing or time limited? And the second one is the execution. How are we going to do this thing? So let's look at intent. Now, this is full blown, and you probably don't need all of this for every delegation, but for those that are somewhat complex, somewhat unique, somewhat new, maybe you do need to work through all of these pieces of intent. First of all is the situation. What's the context here? Things to be considered here is what is going on, why this assignment, why you, why now, what are the given factors, the givens of the situation, the scope and boundaries, commitments and limitations, in other words, the resources, the time, that sort of thing. And who are the key stakeholders or players? What is going on? Why this assignment? Why you? Why now? What are the given factors? And who are the key stakeholders and players? That's part of the situation of the intent. Now we move to the what's, the results of the to be desired in the delegation. What's the objective? What are the desired outcomes? How do you know success when you see it? And what are the concerns? What do we need to keep an eye on, you and the person or people you're delegating this piece of work to? So then we move to another part of execution, and that's the authority. Or now we move to execution, excuse me. That was the intent. Now let's move to the authority, which is the first piece of execution. So we're clear now on what the whats are. Let's move to how much power invested in the person that you're going to give the authority. You could think of this in these ways, from very little authority to the whole thing. Just do it. So one level of authority is to just investigate. Would you check this out? Now we agreed on what we're trying to do here, and just let me know. Another one would be check it out and recommend. Investigate, and the other one is recommend. Check it out and let's get back together and recommend what we should do. The third is to decide and get approval. In other words, we agreed on the intent, work it through, and formulate an opinion, but check with me before you implement, okay? The fourth of 5, investigate, recommend, decide, and get approval, is act and inform. Go ahead and do it, but let me know what you did, okay? And the final is just act. We've agreed on what we're trying to achieve. I'll leave it to you to figure out the best way to do it, and just go ahead and do it. Thank you. Another one of the execution is assistance needed. You got to think through any special training or help needed for the person you're delegating it to. Any advanced communications with others needed regarding the delegation. Can I pave the way, or do I need to pave the way? Grease the skids, if you will. Who needs to know? What do we need to tell them? How are we going to tell them? Should it be me, you, both of us? And then how are we going to work together through this piece of delegation? How are we going to work in having quality collaboration? What is the frequency and the kind of interaction needed? And then there's the hows. This is the performing it, the action plan, what, who, when, resources needed. So those are several pieces in terms of the actual execution. Again, it's the authority, the assistance needed, working together, and the hows. Now, the passage from the what's to the hows needs to be seen as a dotted line, not a solid line. But it's a good opportunity, once you've agreed on the outcomes, to delegate a large part, give a large part of discretion to the person you're delegating this to. Now that will vary. Sometimes you need to continue involved in the execution as well as the intent. And maybe you have a lot of knowledge that you need to be still involved, or for some reason you need to coach the person on the house and need to stay close. But other times it's a great opportunity to say, okay, now why don't you go ahead and just execute, and then whatever authority you agreed on, to personally keep you posted. So beware of that transition point between the intent and the execution. A good time to allow for discretion for whoever you're delegating it to. Now let's close up with briefly discussing managing your weaknesses. As I pointed out earlier, when you talked about strengths, it's just as important to figure out what you're not strong in, and then you can be better informed as you move forward. So the key here is to bite the bullet and say, okay, is there any of these weaknesses I can also delegate? Not getting rid of it. I mean, if it's a weakness, maybe you still need to perform it. Not just get rid of it, as we talked about earlier. And if you need to continue performing it, you need to bite the bullet and say, okay, what am I going to do here? Maybe there's some mentoring and coaching that you can arrange for, education or training, maybe ongoing support from others. In other words, you're trying to take this shortfall and boost it up a little bit. And it could be that even if you get more skilled and even motivated about the shortfall, it's never going to be a strength. Remember, strengths are what you're really good at and passionate about. But it's a part of your job, and you got to do it well, and you're committed to doing it well. I remember I'll give you an example, one case a while ago when I was in organization life, and the position I was in required quite a bit of detail work, and that was not one of my strengths. That was not detail-oriented, if you will. And it was actually counter to one of my strengths, which is strategic thinking. It was almost the opposite kind of thing. And looking back, if I knew what we were talking about here in this series about discovering your strengths, I probably should have avoided taking this position. But I didn't know, and so I gutted it out, suck it in, and I actually got certified in this hunk of work that I didn't particularly care for. And I was better at it and so forth and so on. I didn't avoid it, and pretty competent in it, but it still wasn't something I really enjoyed. So that's a good example of what you might have to do in managing your weaknesses. Okay, let's preview the next little segment in our episode here. Up to this point, we've been looking at, in terms of the skilled, self-aware leader, we've been looking at the self-aware part. We're going to move in the equation to the skilled part for the next 3 episodes. And to give you a little preview, next episode will be sharpening your perceptive skills, what's going on out there. The second part, 2 episodes from now, will be skillfully communicating about differences you have. And as a leader, you're going to have differences. And if you don't have differences, maybe you're not being courageous enough or really being assertive enough. So you got to handle those with skill. And then the final one is adaptive behavior, being able to self-regulate your behavior and to align and pace with folks you're dealing with. So next 3 episodes are sharpening your perceptive skills, skillfully communicating about your differences, and then adaptive behavior. It should be a fun time for us. All right, you take care of yourself, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.